Hi, I'm Keegan. We're back at GM Talks, shockingly so early, given that the last one we had a several month break. I'm joined by Eddy Webb once again
Hello.
to talk about Pugmire. I think we talked about this on the Discord, but I think you get frequent flyers now. I think you've matched or exceeded Dawkins and Josh now for number of
Woo!
appearances.
Excellent. Do I get to is my next podcast appearance free now?
Yeah, your next podcast experiences, we can talk about anything. And then it's about games. The last one was
Ooh.
tangentially involved with games anyway. It was look at this cool anarchist text and how it relates to Werewolf the Apocalypse. Anyway, the text. So
Next time we're talking about nothing but Beast Wars. Just about Beast
incredible.
Wars.
I love Beast Wars. But we have there's a new book for Pugmire, second edition coming out, The Rat King, I
Yes.
believe.
Yes, Lair of the Rat Kings.
Yes.
So the spiel is it is kind of my nod to the traditional mega dungeon where you spend like a large chunk of your campaign underground. And we did a little bit of that back in Squeaks and Deep in first edition. But like with Curious Cats of Mao, we're taking that material, we're obviously updating the existing material to the new edition, but also adding just so much more to it. And so if you're familiar with the original material, you're gonna say, "Oh yeah, I recognize that bit and recognize that bit." But also, we put a few twists on some things, and like I said, just everything is just everything but more. It's always fun to be able to kind of dig into some of the things that I didn't quite have the space to get into the first time around.
Very cool. So I do like the mega dungeon thing. So did you add any kind of special rules for exploration to kind of really just simulate that kind of that feel? Since I know second edition or first edition was very much heavily inspired and based on 5e, and second edition has some compatibilities, and I know that that's been lacking in 5e.
Yeah. So yes and no. Part of the I don't want to say the problem, but part of the challenge of emulating a mega dungeon is what a mega dungeon does, right? Because like you say, uh, the whole vibe is resource management on some level, and that is something that explicitly, intentionally, I don't do a lot of with Pugmire, particularly even more in second edition. I've kind of continued to pare away the resource management stuff because I do feel like it gets in the way of the kind of heroic elements of it. But that was something I actually tasked Travis Legg to work on this time around. And so yeah, we have some light resource management put back in because one of the elements of the mega dungeon is that you want to have that a push and pull of, do we chance going further and maybe find something really cool and interesting, or do we stop here, go back and refresh and revitalize ourselves, get our resources back up, but also then the enemies we've been dealing with may have a chance to also replenish themselves. So like there's always kind of that. I think it's a key piece of mega dungeon stuff, and we didn't go too far into that specifically, but we do have slightly more narrative resource management, right? So like rations and light, which are kind of the classic ones. We do talk a little bit more about that and like what it means to be low on either of those and to kind of keep track of those, but not quite to the same level of, this light source lasts for X period of time and it runs out and you have to track all your torches. Not quite that granular, but it is still there. Um, uh, but rather, we more explicitly, something we didn't do in first edition, during this edition, is the narrative pacing of the mega dungeon. So now, if you start in a location, a city, right? Then if you want to get to the actual dungeony bits, which we call set pieces now, you have to go through an encounter to get there. And so the idea is that if you ever want to leave the set piece to go back and replenish, you can, but you do have to go through an encounter to get back to a place of safety. So there's never clean path back. You always have to go through something to get there. So that's where more of the narrative management kind of comes in. So now it's a case of, okay, well, we're going to have something to deal with. It not always have to be a fight, but it's probably going to be a conflict of some kind that we have to go through if we want to go back home. So maybe we want to stay here and push through because we make it something more powerful, more useful through pushing through to help deal with that return back home. Or do we go a little bit earlier so that, while our stamina points are still relatively high, we still have a couple of healing things left and chance what we go through the encounter before we make it back to a place of safety.
Okay, no, that's cool, and I'm glad that I'll have Travis on next time to really dive into that, since me and him vibe out a bit on the OSR kind of look and feel of
Yes.
things. Um, so how many energy drinks did you like IV into people to make functional psionic rules for the mice? I'm still a little scarred from 3 and 3.5, unfortunately.
So it's funny you mention that because that's actually one of the reasons I wanted to do psionics, right? Because my wife, who has been playing D&D even longer than I have, she's been playing since the 70s. Uh, and for years, she would be like, I really enjoy D&D. I love it. But fuck psionics. And I'm like, what? No, I think they get a bad rap. And like to her points, the original psionic rules are not good, and most of them are not good. But that's kind of one of the things I wanted to do because, like you said, it's not OSR in the way that we define OSR. It's more kind of the vibes of OSR into the Pugmire structure. I was like, one of the things I wanted to do from that vibes is psionics. And so again, like I just kind of shoved Travis in a box. I'm like, hey, could you make this happen? And to be fair, he did that first edition, but I did not give him enough space to do that well. So it was kind of kludged together. It's like, yeah, kind of squint to the magic system and then use sonic powers and you're good. But now that we have more room, I gave him a whole chapter. So, okay, let's just really kind of dig into this now. Give a full proper listing of psionic powers. And even we had space to do what we're calling inventions, which are basically psionic magic items, where you actually can make your own items. It was a good conversation. Travis had talked about kind of the fundamentals of it, and I kind of let him just handle it because he had a very strong vision for where he wanted to go with that. But what it comes down to is that it is basically pretty similar to how magic works, in the sense that because Pugmire has nudged 5e magic a little closer to something that's a bit like video gamey mana points style of magic, and also has different ways you can kind of modify powers. I felt like we were kind of closer to where Psionics should be anyway. The kind of the big balance now is that for psionics, all you have to do is just say, I'm using this power, make a roll, see if it happens, kind of thing. But now psionics all have tells, which are basically there's something that happens whenever you use psionic powers. Your eyes glow, there's a weird smell in the air, there's a weird sound that happens, like a roaring of water or something. But the big piece of that is you as a psionicist need to be able to perceive your own tell. So if, say, it's a sound of rushing water, if someone makes you deaf, then you can't hear the sound of your tell, which means you can't use sonic powers anymore. So it's it's a way to kind of balance psionics, but in a different way than how magic works. And we actually have a little bit of space to kind of talk about how magic and psionics intersect. We didn't really get a chance to get into that in first edition. This edition, we can talk a little bit more about, okay, if I have a magic spell and I have a psionic power, how do those work and interact and engage and whatnot? So, like, they use the same chassis as magic, but it ends up going in a pretty distinctly different direction.
I really like that with the tells and things like that. I think that's really interesting. It reminds me almost like the Yavins or whatever for the Bastet and Werewolf the Apocalypse, in that they had these weird things that mess with them. I really like that. It is also kind of funny that you've moved away from Vancian magic in probably the most Vancian modern setting that uses D&D style rules. Like, if
Yes.
I'm being honest, one of the strange ironies of Pugmire. So
Which is weird because, like, one of the weird things about Pugmire is that I was inspired by a lot of the books and material that the original people making D&D were also inspired by, but so many of them have become design tropes without people losing all of the context for why these things are design tropes. That sometimes it's like I have read books written by Vance. I like the idea of literally magic disappearing from your mind as used. It's such a cool concept, but now that bit of you memorize and forget a spell is so just entrenched in how we do fantasy games anymore. That's like I can't really do that. So like yeah, this is a way to kind of work back to the same aesthetical space, but from a different perspective. Which like with the tells, it's like it's that same kind of Vance's digging into how magic is perception and how magic is a force that can't ever be completely contained inside of a human mind or body. So like this is a way to kind of get something that feels a bit like that. But you're right, we can't do the exact same thing again anymore, sadly.
Yeah, and then most games have been slightly moving away or tweaking the Vancian design because it was limiting, and people not having the context definitely throws that off.
Right.
I did have one that I think you'll get a laugh out of. I sudden inspiration last night, as I did force several people to start reading Elric finally, and they're like, "Wow, like a lot of my favorite books seem to be pulling from this." I'm like, "Yes, correct." Uh, and I had this envisionment of Yosha Pug with Stormbringer going, the city of Pugmire, my former home. Getting ready for
How
this
we have all
talk today.
fallen.
How we've all Pugmire, the dreaming city of man.
It's really funny because like some of this stuff is so kind of embedded in my head as like a kid who grew up in the 80s reading over fantasy books my library happened to have, right? That like someone pointed out to me kind of recently that Pugmire is a bit like that. I mean, obviously not to the they're all decadence and basically find thrill in sex and torture and torment. Like they're not that, but they are an isolated city that feels like everyone else is a bit beneath them and they don't really need to look outside of themselves and will let people just leave and form their own societies rather than try to bring them back into their society. I mean, Pugmire is kind of like that actually. So it's interesting. Like wasn't conscious of that, but then when someone pointed out, I could kind of see retroactively see all the threads. Like, oh, I could see where my brain kind of ended up in that space, even though I wasn't intentionally homaging that.
Pugmire accidentally asking the question of if Elric was published today, would Chuds consider it woke? The answer was yes. Uh,
Oh God, yes.
um,
It's like this entire society is just a ripoff of trying to desperately satirize MAGA, and they don't really appreciate what it's like. No, it's just
no, he just hated Conan. I promise.
right.
Um, no, that's cool. So, for rodents, I know that we have rats and mice. Are there any others that we can expect in second edition with this book?
No, but I did expand things a bit more in different directions, right? Like with Pugmire Unleashed, which just came out a couple weeks ago. We can talk about that if you like, but that had lagomorphs and reptiles and birds and all that. And so each of those, I said, yeah, let's give like another calling, another species, whatever, to kind of spread things out. But the rat mouse thing has always been a really strong dichotomy. So part of it was we dug into that more. We kind of lightly referenced it in the first issue. We kind of dug into more the idea that rats and mice were we're a caste society that has in past few decades started to move away from that distinction, but it's still part of their culture on some level. The idea that rats are stronger and the mice are more emotional. They're intentionally broad stereotypes, and meant to be something that the game itself plays with the fact that these are stereotypes inside their culture. But like one of the things that we just didn't have space for was specifically upbringings. Literally, upbringings in first edition are just I don't know, pick a stat and add a point to it, and it's good enough. In this one, we actually have 6 proper upbringings. They're divided between mice and rats, and then all of the callings exist. And so originally, callings were 3 mouse callings, 3 rat callings, because I was trying to, again, have that kind of satirical structure of a caste society. But because we're a little further along in that exploration, I now have I specifically tasked the writer, that in that case I was Dixie Cochran, to rewrite those so that anyone could pick up any of those callings, which meant some of those callings had to be tweaked and adjusted a bit more to give them a little more kind of spin and distinction. The bits of rats and mice are different kind of got moved to the upbringing level. And so that's where you get kind of your nuanced expansion that we didn't have before. And I think we added 2 more callings. Yes, we did, because we added a calling that uses gunpowder weapons now, which we didn't have in the last version. Um, but we want to give more room for characters to kind of move around and do things that they couldn't do before. So, like, originally, if you were a rat, you had 3 character classes you could play. That was it. Now you have a lot more. And again, because psionics have been expanded, now there are a lot more psionic powers they have access to as well. So it was not just, here's another box to check on your character you could play instead, but instead it's the now the barriers that were there have been removed, and there's a lot more flexibility.
Well, and you'd mentioned there's psionic items. How those differ from magical items like in terms of both
Uh,
flavor and mechanics.
yeah, so in core Realms of Pugmire, um, magical items are just things that exist. Humans made things, and dogs can pick them up and use them, and your default magical items. And the big thing that dogs could do with them was that as they became more experienced, they could actually, some magical items can get more powerful with them. Right, that's a specific thing that only dogs can do. Um, and then for curious cats, we went the opposite route, which is that cats can break those items and then internalize the powers. And so if they have the item, they can't make it more powerful. But if they break it and then make it part of them, then they can make that power more powerful. So that becomes part of their body. Because I want to play the idea that cats are a little more selfish, and also they are the hackers of the world. They can take things apart and figure out how they work. Dogs just are super users. They know how to make things work really, really well. So for inventions, uh, these are now things that player characters can make. So they can make their own magic gems. And basically, an invention, what it fundamentally is you can you could take your psionic powers, put them into an object, and then use them without using your own power points, or give them somebody else and they can use it for a short period of time until it runs out of power.
Okay, cool. No, I like that distinction a lot. Because I did remember the distinction between um, that distinction between dogs and cats. So making this kind of separate psionic thing is really cool.
Yeah,
Because
and one of the things that came out because of the player, or sorry, the writers, was that plastic was kind of the mystical material for magic items. And the team kind of, I think a couple writers came to the same idea separately, and we kind of talked about it and made it more of a thing, was that crystals are the thing for inventions, to kind of give it another aesthetic twist from the established tropes of the rest of Pugmire. So now plastic actually slightly impedes the process, because plastic doesn't conduct energy well. But if you have more crystals on it, then that makes your thing more powerful. So again, all these little tweaks and adjustments that make sure that rodents are just slightly to one side of the traditional Pugmire experience.
yeah, so is that kind of related to how magic and psionics intersect as well? Because the crystals conducting energy, so psionics is more energy, and I guess magic is more mathy or technology based.
Yeah. From a mechanical level, how it works is that magic is a little more flexible, because you can actually modify spells to do different things, and also there's no kind of restrictions on your learning. Right? Is like well, let me take it back. Um, there is restriction on learning, but it's two very large buckets, which is you're an artisan or you're a shepherd. But inside of those, you can take whatever you want. With psionics, I'm sorry, and then the logical, the behind the scenes in world explanation for that is that because it's technology, and technology can adapt and adjust, because it's computer based fundamentally. With psionics, they are actually genuinely mind powers. So the in-game world is no, they actually had just discovered psionics. So this is one of the few parts of the Pugmire world where there's no layer of metaphor. It's just what it is. Um, but also the rodents had done a pretty good job over the decades to codify it, but it's still at an early state, and so the power just does what it says on the tin. But they have 4 different colleges, and so yes, the different callings have 2 colleges that they're aligned with, but then they're slightly easier to kind of pick from a 3rd college or to move between the 2 colleges. So like the flexibility comes in which powers you pick rather than adjusting the powers themselves. So with cats and dogs, you get one big bucket of spells and then you modify those spells. With psionics, you get a whole bunch of specific powers and you decide which of those powers make sense for what you want to do with your character. So again, like it gives you a different vibe, and because these are mind powers as opposed to technology, they don't easily intersect. Like you can't use dispel magic to stop a psionic power, nor can you use mute minds to stop a spell. And we talk a little bit about that. But if you cast a fireball and set the place on fire, then my reduced temperature psionic power can affect that because it's now the environment is on fire, so not going to affect that.
Gotcha. I am now imagining a game of this where they're going through the mega dungeon and then they find like the last 10, 15 minutes of the secret of Nim and like, man, knew.
Mhm. That was
uh,
actually one of the things. Another thing that we wanted to do with this book is the Cultural Laboratoire that you mentioned. Actually, um, were very popular in first edition, and unfortunately, they were so popular that every writer wanted to do something with them, and so we had lots of bits and pieces of the cult kind of through all the first edition books. And so for this edition, I very much frustrated my writers because I was like, after the Realms of Pugmire book, we are not talking about the cult at all in any of the other books until we get to this book. And so many writers kept trying to sneak stuff in. Like, no, no, the cult is off the table. We're not doing it. But now that we're here, we do have like a whole big section about the cult. And one of the things is the cult believes that, much like dogs, man had superior knowledge and they want to try to acquire it. But unlike dogs, they don't believe that praying to man to give the answer. They have to reconstruct man's experiments. And as far as the cult is concerned, how man gave them knowledge is by hurting them very badly. So if they hurt other people very badly, they will learn. Because, again, which is a nod towards animal experimentation and whatnot. So again, yeah, Cult of Nim is very much in my mind. I'm thinking about the cult. Basically, it's what would happen if the rest of Cult of Nim took all the wrong lessons from that movie and formed a cult.
well, I'm excited because I'm basic in that they were one of my favorite parts of Pugmire for sure. So I just love the little things. They bleach part of their fur so it's white and things like
Hmm.
that. Just like little touches like that really made them deeply fun. Um,
Yeah, and like we wanted to keep that, right. Uh but I also did want to. This is actually an interesting debate because in first edition, I very much wanted them to be creepy, like you said, like they bleach part of their fur, and I wanted them to be um, the religious extremists that are the reason why rodents are not trusted by any of the other cultures, because there's this one small group that takes all the oxygen out of the room when talking about them, and they do horrible fucked up shit, and so nobody else trusts the rodents because this small group of rodents do horrible fucked up shit. um, and then but they're also really funny, and that became a very strong slide in first edition. It's like they're so goofy, they make mistakes, ha ha ha. They actually set a Frankenstein monster off in the dungeon. I mean, it's like there's a lot of fun there. And I even found myself doing it. And that's why for this edition, I had to really pull back. But one of the challenges was this time around, because when I first started the path for the new edition, I was like, no, they're going back to being just creepy, right? They're going to be evil, creepy bastards. But it was pointed out to me by a lot of people that that's a lot of people really do enjoy them, right? And so making them just giving them like that strong heel turn wasn't gonna land the way it worked in my head anymore. So I had to kind of find a balance for that. Again, I talked to Travis and Ryan Wielden, who did the other chunk of uh, cult stuff in this book, and we kind of came to a good decision of like they have funny moments, but once you start thinking about what their ideology is actually saying, it becomes creepy. And a good example of that is the leader that we introduce. So the plot for this book, which isn't it's on the back cover of the book, so like I'm not spoiling anything, is that the existing Rat Kings have disappeared, and there's now a great Rat King that has revealed himself. And this Rat King is Dr. Brainstorm Masters, PhD, MD, QED. And the joke for a while was that every time his name comes up in the book, it is always Dr. Brainstorm Masters, PhD, MD, QED, because you will give him his titles because he has earned those in fake rat college. He awarded himself those titles, and it didn't work out in the text. So I modified how that joke lands on the page, but the idea is still sound, which is that as far as the dogs and cats concerned, he's just this weird ass rat that has white fur and demands everyone call him by his full name and claims to be something called the Great Rat King. And that's just okay. That guy's weird. We'll just kind of ignore him. He's not really doing any harm. But it's all part of a large stage coup to try to overthrow rat society. And that's kind of where the tone for the cult has landed, which is that on the surface, they seem just kind of silly and goofy. And if you want to still play them that way, that's not an invalid way of running them, right? That's still a viable way of presenting a cult in your games. But if you dig deeper, there's a lot more creepy weirdness happening beneath the surface.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of those things, right, where that comedy and horror kind of two sides of the same coin, because there are moments that are deeply funny in, let's say, A World of Darkness or even Curseborn, where it is
Mhm.
horrific, but also it's a little funny. It is,
Yeah.
right? Like one of those things. So I can get that frustration though at the table because, as Jax put in our last episode, players is bastards sometimes.
Right, and one thing it's actually Curseborn because, like, with Curseborn, it's tactical in the sense that we have a little bit of humor in there just to lighten the horror, right? Because, one thing that is good to know about horror is that if it's just endless horror, people get numb to that, and it stops being scary. It's like, "Okay, look, another horrible thing has happened." It's one of the reasons why, like, The Walking Dead, as an example, has some really funny moments in an extremely bleak, long-running series. And so with Curseborn, you kind of have to calibrate that a very specific way, but also you have to kind of educate your audience and say, "This is what we're doing with horror or with humor," I should say, and making sure that in the text you're consistently doing it in a very specific, sparing way. And so it's intentionally dialed in to be kind of sarcastic and droll, right? Like for example, one of the tasty bits I did for Curseborn was the Master Cat, which is a mind controlling cat. And so like the concept is a bit funny because it is the cat that controls you. But everything in the text is about cats are psychotic monsters if let off the leash, right? And it's like that's the humor of that is just it's a funny cat, but then it's actually a really horrible concept. With Lair of the Rat Kings, I kind of had to do the reverse, right? Which is Pugmire is intentionally designed to be it is not a humor game, but it's a game with a lot of humor in it, and there's an important distinction because I have played with many of the people you have played with, and knows that inevitably a game is gonna people are gonna joke and make puns at the table. So by offering a game that says that's fine, you don't break anything if you do that, Pugmire's always been a game that welcomes that kind of jocularity. Like, yes, you are going to make a joke about dog sniffing butts. You're going to make a joke about squeaky bones. That is what the game welcomes and encourages you to do. But this is also the scary book, right? This is the book that has it's not horror. I've been using the term spooky to talk about it because like it is that kind of fun house, haunted house, Halloween style of quote unquote horror. That there are horror tropes there, and there are bits that are scary, but it can't go full into that because the game won't survive that kind of contact. The horror will start to dwarf the inherent humor of the game. So like with Curseborn, the horror had, or sorry, the humor had to be a light touch to make sure that the horror went down. With Pugmire, it's the opposite, right? It's like the scary bits are there to even out the funny bits. And so again, like with the Cult of Laborator, they're kind of funny on the surface, but they're more horrifying in the middle, which is the complete opposite of the Master Cat jet gag, which is it's a funny idea and it's horrible underneath. But you get past the funny bit real fast. Whereas this, it's like you may take a while to realize the cult, and then even then, there are still jokes underneath of it. Like the big meta joke of the Cult of Laborator is out of all of the actual cults in the Pugmire game, this is the only one that's called a cult. All the other ones are called something else, like the Order of Gmo and whatnot. They all have really esoteric names. This is the one explicitly called a cult, yet they do not worship a demon. They're just scientists, right? And so the joke is the only actual literal cult in the game is not actually worship a demon. They're just jerks. And so like there's even a joke, a meta joke inside of that. So like the joke sandwich kind of like it's funny at the top, it's funny at the bottom, in the middle it's kind of weird and scary.
I stupid joke came into my head. Funny enough, of just they actually prefer to call them the high control group of Laborator now.
It's funny you mention that because we actually do that. There's a control group joke in there because again we have room to expand on it more. And so we talked a bit more about kind of what they do. And so like we have references like the Maze of Ignorance and the Hundreds Laws of Man that we just threw away as references. We never actually talked about them. And one of them is that whenever they capture people, experiment on them, they're called control groups because if they actually put something into their brains that's useful, they want to save that for themselves. So you put the things you're not sure are going to work into other people. That's a control group. So like there's all these little kind of scientific puns because these are rodents who have no idea how science actually works. They just use lots of science buzzwords, and then I jokingly in one time in Discord said, but basically they're tech bros with delusions of competence, and it's funny, but also like we are living in a world we see how much damage tech bros with delusion of competence can actually do to us. So it can be really scary.
Agreed. Yeah, no, I was thinking that too. I was thinking the exact same thing as you were talking. Like, yep, that or the other one being I've been on YouTube. Yes.
Yes, I too have watched a guy in a car talk about things.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. So no, I like that. So besides the cult, then, what are some of your favorite antagonists that you introduce and introduce into this book? Since Pugmire does have very interesting monsters that really set it apart from others.
We do actually bring some back from first edition because again, like I like a good re-reference, as it were. So like one of my favorites that I want to make sure came back was the Dragon, the Dragon, which is a robotic security device that is designed to protect a space, the Defense Robot Automated Guardian Observation Network, and it's literally the only explicit dragon I have in the game. So it's like I've got to bring it back at some point in time. It's based on D&D at some level. Got to have a dragon in. But the dragon has a new space now in the game, so like it's things have happened since the last time you saw the character, and it's now doing new things, which so I think it's fun. But like there's also things like the book scorpions, which is basically the Cult of Laborator said we need to create something that allows us to consume knowledge faster. I have read a book about a thing called a bookworm, and we A, create that, and then B, weaponize it. So they now have these tiny little scorpions that go and just devour text. And like, it doesn't give them anything. The book is now gone, but they have consumed knowledge that's apparently something useful. So that they've created something to do it again. Peak Laborator. I don't know what I'm making, but goddamn, I'm going to make it, right? But now you have these things where you open a book and maybe the scorpions like actually eating your face, or some of these book scorpions have the opposite. Like over time, have evolved to where now they've decided to protect libraries. because they want to at some point eat them in the future. And so it's like you're gonna make sure nobody else can touch them because this is a long-term food source. And so now you have book scorpions hiding in libraries in little shelves to make sure they attack people in case they try to grab their food sources. The ecology, it doesn't make a lick of sense, but I feel like a mega dungeon, if it's done properly, doesn't make a lick of sense, right? It's just stuff that
It's
happens in rooms.
it's just enough sense to like make you go sure and hand wave it away has been my
Right.
experience. I don't know if I'm too horrific or not, but when you said book scorpion, you said they ate it. I was like, oh, incredible! And then they sting the person, and all of it goes into their mind. And if they fail like a will save, they just collapse.
Which would be cool if they were created by more competent antagonists,
Fair enough.
but
The other one was like you inject them full of propaganda and you release them out as a weapon.
oh, nice. There you go. That's fun.
Yeah, but no, very cool.
Uh, Another one is the Jordo. The Jordo, they're kind of crystalline little bird-like people, and if they run at each other, they shatter, but then the heads end up all in the same body. And so, like, if two of them run together, they become Drododos, and then if three of them together, they become Drodododos. So one of the writers came up with this, and then it was really fun with this. That's cool. And then Dixie Cochran was writing one of the encounters. She's like, "Oh, I'm now going to do my Final Fantasy reference, and now we have like one of the encounters is Drodo racing. We can train a Drodo and race it underground, but also if they run into each other, then that can cause them more powerful. They may also screw up the track, and so it just becomes kind of like this chaos of like Drodo doping and manipulation. It's this whole little side encounter all around Drodos because she was just like, I'm gonna do the fantasy thing. I'm like, that's awesome, love it, do it.
Nice. How many? I guess because it's more narrative, obviously, of how you explore these things.
Right.
Do you give advice on like themes of floors, how to get down to lower floors? How many floors are officially in this dungeon?
So I don't use floor as a metric because this is much more of an organic space, and so like it's not. While these individual spaces have been constructed, they're not stacked, right? So all of it is collectively called the underneath, and the idea is that originally it started because the rodents were literally driven underground because they didn't have a place to live because they believed they had a city somewhere where they all lived and that city was destroyed. And so they went to escape to find a home, and the other races turned them away, and so they were forced to live underground. And uh, the weird thing about the underground is that it doesn't stay in the same shape for long. Something that's kind of collectively called the hungry earth, which is that sometimes people just walk down tunnels and get eaten. And so part of that is because I want an excuse as to why you have just these narrative chunks that you snap together like Legos to create a story. Um, so it's not like the game master goes, "Okay, I want to do a literal underground jail, and so I have to find the right pieces to make that theme." No, it literally just the dragon lair is next to the Drodo racing is next to a giant slug. Because the reason why is because for whatever reason, right now the underneath has moved those pieces into alignment with each other. If you come back the same way, you may not find those pieces, and so there is guidance on what moves when. So like locations never move. There are cities, and these are stable places. So like if you orient yourself around these locations, there's the underground river. And you can always find the river, and that's a way that people can actually orient themselves in the underneath. Oh, is it close to or far from the river? Um, and as a place is built up enough times, it manages to stabilize itself in a space. Um, Set pieces are pieces that while you're inside of it, nothing changes. But if you try to make your way back to it, it may not be in the same place you left it when you were first there. So it's stable for the duration of the time you spend inside of it, but then later on, the Earth may have pulled it away. So that's why you have like your lost cities, your strange spaces, and of course your hidden layers, because you don't want people to be able to find your hidden layer. And so having a hidden layer that occasionally moves itself around is extremely useful if that's what you want. And then there are encounters, and encounters are literally it will happen, and then this exact encounter may happen again, but it will never be in the same place, and it probably won't be in the exact same form. So they are fleeting. They happen and then they go away. And sometimes the encounters are very logically fleeting. One is the slugless carriage, which is literally a couple of rodents have invented steampunk style machine. It has crashed into a tunnel, and they're bickering over how to get it out there. And you go up and help them with it, and of course, bad things happen. But next time you come there, that carriage is not going to be there because they have figured out how to move it on. So there's a reason why that encounter doesn't exist anymore. Other times it's weirder, like the Gagamama look lair, which is a bunch of plastic baby doll heads that have gained sentience and have clustered together as a swarm. And so you walk into ruins and there's just a mountain of plastic baby heads. And so from a dog's perspective, it's like, this is the richest thing I've ever seen. But then they open their eyes and start saying, "Mama, mama, mama, mama," at you, and it becomes creepy as hell. If you try to come back to reclaim these treasures with more people, it's not there anymore. It's just gone. So the because I didn't want to have a massive map drawn for a lot of reasons, uh, I use these set pieces as a way to kind of put together, and a little bit in the first edition, but much more in this edition, is explicitly now a transitory, and we lean more into the fact that there's a reason why no one has mapped the underneath is because it doesn't stay still long enough, and so that's the reason why you have to get guides, and that's why seasoned adventurers are really needed, is because they can't tell you exactly how to get there, but may eventually develop a sense of where they'll probably find it. And so certain skills and certain powers may eventually help you to better locate this stuff, but it's never going to be exactly right. And then the other reason for that is, Matthew Dawkins did The World Below, and The World Below is also a heavily underground, subterranean fantasy setting. But Matthew does lean a lot more into levels and structures and how things are tied together. And so I wanted something that had the same kind of vibes of it, but did it in very different directions. Like if I did lots of theming and layers and whatnot, that would have started to look a little bit too close to The World Below. So I wanted to kind of make sure it was moving in a distinctive direction.
I was thinking about that when you're talking about the rooms moving and things like that. I'm like, I've heard this before. So,
Sure.
yeah, and I was like,
and it's
I was
kind of
just.
weird.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And it's weird kind of like around no, I'm saying it's a weird catch 22 because like Matthew I had the idea in first Squeaks the Deep, and then Matthew worked on that, and then he took a piece of that and worked on The World Below, and then now asked him to write on this book. So like, we trade the ideas back and forth. But again, The World Below is much more stable than my setting is because Matthew really wanted to lean much more into this is an actual society and it completely lives underground. Whereas mine is much more. This is the only reason why people would live here is because they have literally no other option.
Oh, for sure. And I no shame on like pulling ideas from each other anyway. Like everything pulls from everything, as we've talked about here
Absolutely,
before.
absolutely.
Um, so is there anything special about settlements that the mice and rats have discovered that allows them to be stabilized? Is that something that can be threatened in the
Uh,
game?
so the answer is yes. They have discovered something, but the rodents don't know what it is, and I don't tell you in the book.
Awesome.
But I'm happy to say, like on here, like it comes down to is if you put enough people with psionic power in a space that does stabilize the underneath, they just haven't figured that piece out yet. Like if rodents just moved more people in those spaces and they just lived there, the underneath would start to slowly settle into an actual shape. But they haven't figured that piece out yet.
Gotcha. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Spoilers, not in the book.
I love doing that kind of here's a deep lore thing on a podcast. So like
Oh,
sometimes
I get it.
some people get mad about it, but like I like doing it.
I get it. Like I do things all the time where I've dropped because I know my players tend not to listen to these side podcasts. As I'll just go, yeah, this happened in the werewolf game. This is the thing that's gonna happen in like 2 weeks, and then it happens. I'm like, oh yeah. Thankfully, you guys don't follow everything I do, because I can't keep my mouth shut. Uh,
I'm having a bit of the opposite side of that because with Red Moon role playing, I am playing through Masks of Nyarlathotep.
Oh yes.
which is well-known setting. I have never played a single session of that campaign. I have no clue what I'm getting into, right? And of course, Matthew's running it and he's tweaking and adjusting things too. But like, I do have constant people going, "Oh, you're in Shanghai. Oh, I'm so excited. What's gonna happen there?" It's just like, don't tell me. But you know, they all know what's gonna happen. I'm like, I don't know. So I do get the other side of that.
I need to run Masks at some point. I have it on my shelf. I've read it. I want to, but I
It's a
have
haul.
been. It is, but like I've been running this werewolf game for 8 years, so
Oh,
like,
geez, yeah.
yeah, I got like I'm trying to wrap it up. Rogue's Talon is coming. Uh, we're we are in we are in the final countdown as one of my players in our post game talks like yeah because they joke like yeah it does feel like we've got like 20 to 30 sessions left and he's like I'm gonna be real with you guys all jokes aside I think we're in the single digits finally.
But that's fun, right? Like, I actually last year finally did a level 1 to level 20 D&D campaign. I didn't run; I was playing in it. My roommate ran it. He started running it 2019 before lockdowns, and we just finished up late last year. And it was exciting, right? You know, it's like playing a long game and that has a definitive ends can be really cathartic, can be really exciting if it's done well. And so having stuff like, you know, actually playing through to the apocalypse or actually playing through mess in our left tab, it's like it can be really fun if everyone's all completely on board with what that's doing, you know?
My ex roommate, who is in a Delta Green game of mine, he's like, "Oh, just a short campaign. What, 2 3 years, Keegan? That's your typical short, right?" And I'm like, "Oh, please don't curse me with this." But it's true. Like, I think my
No, come
short
on.
games are like a year long these days. I am incapable, as it turns out.
It's funny because like, for years, I pivoted to very short campaigns, but just 'cause I got so frustrated with so many campaigns just fizzling out, right? And so, like, I've been doing 8 to 12 sessions and we're done. And then more recently, I have been slowly moving back into slightly longer forms. Like, I'm playing through, Hope Rising for Cyberpunk Red. It's 6 adventures, but, like, when you're playing online particularly, each adventure is about 2 or 3 sessions, and I'm also doing some side stuff as players do stuff. I'm throwing in like some the occasional other job and whatnot. So like it's probably going to be about two change years before we're done. And again, I'm really enjoying it 'cause, like I know there's going to be an end because the book's going to run out at a certain point in time, and like literally, spoilers for Hope's Rising, but um, uh, a bar burns out at the beginning. At the end, the bar has built. So like it's a pretty clear structure there. It's just all the shit in the middle you have to deal with. So like but it is fun to have that longer form planning, but I don't think I could ever go back to I'm gonna sit down and intentionally start a game that I know will take 5 plus years to finish because my brain doesn't work that way anymore. I don't think I could accidentally end up doing that where it's like I come to one ending and then but there's a couple plot threads left over for the see if the season cliffhanger or whatever, and then players go, "We want to keep going, cool." I'll go to another ending, and then I could keep doing that maybe. But the kind of again level 1, level 20 D&D campaign of where you start as schlubs and end up as gods thing. I don't think I could do that anymore. So I'm in
That's
awe of people who
fair.
can.
That's fair. I knew I was getting to the apocalypse, but I just didn't know how long. And it turned out 8 to 9 years is my apocalypse run. Um,
But that's
Actually,
cool.
my polycules merged recently, and we're gonna do an old school essentials open table game where I'm just like, here's the world. You schedule the things. You tell me like a week in advance. I'll come up with a dungeon. You guys investigate, to giving me a clear goal, and we'll do that. And we'll do that until we're happy.
Now you're telling people secrets like the real reason why polyamory is so popular amongst gamers is so that we can get a decent fucking group together.
Right? It helps. No, for the people who listen to both podcasts, no one in my polycule is in the werewolf game. So you can keep your
Well, there you
keep your guesses to yourself. But Only open spoiler, I guess. But yeah, no, because I did a Dungeon Crawl Classics game before for this one, and it was heavily inspired by like Elric and Moorcock and things like that. And
Oh, nice.
I had players who've never read it, so they're just like, "Wow, this is really interesting." Yeah, sure is.
Did you see the announcement of the Elric DCC stuff coming out now?
Oh yes, I saw that, and then Chaosium. No, Free League. Free
Yeah,
League's releasing their
Free
own, and I'm
League's
like,
also doing one.
and I was like, well, I guess I gotta get both. Because I did get I got the Jack Vance Dying Earth DCC expansion. I got
Right.
what did I get? There's the other one I got. Oh, I got the Longkamar one as well, of course. Um,
I swear, Dungeon Crawl Classics is just like going. Are there any other 60s to 70s fantasy franchises we could possibly shove into this thing? I mean, good on them. I think
oh
it's
yeah,
great they're doing it, but it's just like they're going through a checklist.
yeah, like well,
But
because
it's funny 'cause I looked into that because I was like, how did two games get released at the same time? And I think what happened is the folks at DCC licensed Elric, right?
mm-hmm,
But I think Free League specifically licensed the Stormbringer
they did,
RPG.
yes, and they got the original
So it's like that's
designers.
wild.
They got a couple of the original designers too, from what I saw.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but like
Oh
the
god,
patron
that's
system in DCC is essentially just Elric's patron anyway, so it's a good fit and it
oh,
makes
absolutely.
perfect sense. I was joking, I'm like, we eating good as die-hard Elric fans. uh,
And it's like there's not like a movie or anything on the horizon. It just
no,
for some reason at this point in
but
time, two separate conversations all hit like within a week of each
I
other. It was like,
know.
wow, okay.
Well, and I had the joke with someone because on a different like on a book club, and we were talking. It's like we're really glad. It's like they're going to announce a movie and it's going to be terrible because they're going to dumb down Elric, and then we're going to have to hear now that we've read this book. Wow, what's with this? Knockoff Geralt of Rivia going around with his soul blade, and a part of my soul will die.
Yep. Yep.
Ironically. Uh,
Oh yeah.
but
It's references all the way down, man.
it is. Speaking of, are there any fun references in this new Rat Kings book? I almost called it by the first edition
Just
book.
fix it. It's fine. Don't dead name my book. No. It's funny. Like I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I think I covered most of them. I did the Final Fantasy riff with Drodo Racing. Um, uh, we did work in a Nim reference in the psionic spells. Um, or sorry, psionic powers, not spells. Yeah, this one like there wasn't as many new. I want to put a reference into this thing, just because the stuff we were homaging was kind of already there, and frankly, it's so strong, right? Because like with Curious Cats and Pugmire, the references were all stuff that was like, here's something that's a lot like this, but not exactly this, the red wall and whatnot. Um, and so it's like the references were kind of this, but with dogs, this, but with cats. And that worked out fine. But like I said, it's, Rats of Nim, Secrets of Nim, The Great Mouse Detective. There are so many good mouse and rat based media that any reference I would make would just be, oh, this is Basil or Baker Street, and so like it would be so close that the reference would start to suck the oxygen out of the room. So it's like I couldn't make as many. It's this thing, but with rats, because there's so many. It's this thing, but with rats media out there. I mean, fuck Mouse. The seminal comic book Mouse is basically Auschwitz, but with mouse with rats. So I mean, it's like thing, but with rats is a well-known genre, and we're trying to play in that footsteps. But yeah, so we didn't have as many. Here's a fun thing. Um, Although I say that, I did work in a Doctor Who reference because one of the things I wanted to do with this version of the game, something well, actually with second edition of Pugmire as a general, is that it was not quite as weird as I wanted, because the first edition I was a little more concerned that hardcore D&D players would struggle with but with dogs and in the future setting. So I kind of wanted to keep it as fantasy adjacent as possible. This time around, I was like, I think they've got it now. So I kind of want to bring some more of the weirdness of that 70s, 60s, 80s fantasy stuff in. And so one of the dungeons, quote unquote, in the game is actually each room is a different time period, and so you have to jump back and forth through time to navigate your way through the dungeon. It's all time travel. And there's a timey wimey reference that gets stuck in there because why not? It had to at some point happen.
Oh, I like that. As I've said this elsewhere as well, but it's like let's get back to fantasy being written with drugs and not Mormonism. Uh,
Yes.
but
Oh, that's so true.
I know we're getting close to time. Is there any other kind of like things you want to really talk up about this book? Things that people you think people get really excited about, sink their teeth into, etc.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those campaigns where it's already funded. It's actually I just checked recently. We're on our way to 300% funded, which is fantastic. But also, we are specifically focusing on PDF and print on demand as opposed to a traditional print run. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but the big one is that gets around a lot of the tariff nonsense that's happening right now. So if you are worried about like, oh, I don't back Kickstarters or crowdfunders because I'm worried about tariffs or shipping or whatnot, that's all off the table. Everything's going to be digital in some form or fashion, and then we're doing the print on demand through Drive Through RPG, and they have printers all over the world. So there's going to be a printer reasonably close to you that's going to not have that problem. Like we have a printer here in the UK, there's another printer in the EU, and there's a printer in the US. So like odds are pretty good you'll find one that's going to be tariff and shipping easy on you when you actually get the code for the POD. So that's a big piece of it. But otherwise, I mean, this is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. I think if you want something that gets it's not OSR in terms of how it plays by any stretch of the imagination. If anything, it's aggressively not that. But in terms of that kind of weird fantasy vibe that we've been talking about, I think this game leans hard into it. Specifically, mid 70s era where writers were realizing that science fiction and fantasy could coexist in interesting ways, and that's what this whole book is a setting to. Is like you have psionics in there, you have scientists in there, you have robots in here, but it's also still trying to be a fantasy setting. And so you have monsters and magic and weird things, and there's not a disconnect between these concepts. There's not a frisson between these concepts. They just both sit in the same space.
Well, awesome. So, Eddie, is there any place online you want to be found if people so choose to try and find you?
Please don't find me. No. My website is pugstudy.com. I've actually moved all my Pugmire stuff to that website as well, just because I needed to start saving on hosting costs. But also, pugstudy.com is where you can find me on Blue Sky. So if you want to chat with me on there, I do occasionally post Pugmire stuff, but these days mostly it's just what media I'm consuming and what trans rights are being violated that I'm mad about today. But still, if you're into that, it's there.
Perfect. Thanks for joining us, Eddie. I've been Keegan. This is A Bunch of Gamers. We're on YouTube, Podbean, Facebook, Blue Sky, but I was never on Twitter. I founded a cesspool, and I was proven right.